How's my ice cream queen over there in Burnaby? Oh, Raymond, Tony. Ted.
Good evening, sir.
Hello, Richard.
Oh, bonjour. Good evening, Nicolas. Good evening, Consul General. Good to see you. Welcome, welcome.
You're welcome.
It's good to see you. We have everyone in the room. It's wonderful that you could make the time this evening to join us. And we're just near 7 o'clock. This is sort of the informal part where it's just a pre-event reception. And just to get everyone a chance to get to know one another. I just want to see who we have here from senior officers. Of course, Provincial Commissioner David Valentine.
Yes.
He's in the room here. Right next to Commissioner Valentine is Superintendent Chow.
Okay.
Next to him is Superintendent Tsang.
Okay.
I see.
Quite a large gathering of.
It is absolutely, absolutely. It's a wonderful gathering. From our provincial headquarters, we have Mr. Suk Sal here. If you want to just wave and say hi there. Here we are.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. There we are. And next to him, I see Colonel Ted Hawthorne.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We have our dynamic duo, Ms. Huang and Ms. Ho. We have a couple of sergeants that are here as well. Sergeant Yip.
Good evening.
Good evening.
And Sergeant Joe.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
We'll just keep it very short here for the in the essence of time. So before we start, we would like to use this opportunity to take a virtual group photo. So normally what we do is ask everyone to turn their cameras on, and I'll take this opportunity to capture a few screen captures, and then I'll just give you a minute to turn your cameras on, form your beret. Awesome. Okay, ready? Look at the camera. Count to 3. 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3. Okay, wow, we have a lot of young people on today. This is fantastic. Thank you, merci beaucoup. So let us begin the official program with some housekeeping notes. Mr. Tsang.
Well, bonsoir, good evening, and welcome back to another exciting St. John Ambulance Speaker Series. I hope you are all doing well. I'm Tony Tsang, Divisional Superintendent for the Adult Division 304, responsible for Burnaby, West Vancouver, and North Vancouver, BC. Before we begin, invite the members to keep their headdress on, remain seated, salute during the national anthems at the beginning, and for non-uniformed officer and guests, please place your right hands over your heart. Please keep your mic muted, especially when our special guest is speaking. If you have any question, please raise your digital hand. Thank you. And I would like to invite Mr. Richard Liu, non président unitaire de la Union de Brigade, our honorary brigade division president, to say a few words. Sir.
Merci beaucoup, Mr. Sang. Bonsoir à tous. Good evening, everyone. If you haven't seen our previous events, you can find them all here on our YouTube channel. Click the subscribe button down here, s'il vous plaît, and hit that bell up here to be notified when we have new videos. If you're new to this channel, you can always navigate our videos easily with the timestamp chapters in the video description below. Merci. Now, before we begin, I would like to acknowledge and recognize that our division is proudly based here in the diverse city of Burnaby, which is located on the ancestral and unceded homelands of the Coast Salish. We are grateful for the opportunity to present the speaker series on the shared territory tonight. Je vous cede maintenant la parole, Monsieur Chow, over to you.
Merci, Monsieur Liu. Good evening, everyone. Je m'appelle Raymond Chow, and I'm the Divisional Superintendent of St. John Ambulance, Cadet Division 389C. We are based in Burnaby, located right next door to Vancouver. As you can see, we have begun to share in French as we are celebrating Francophonie Month. So let's begin. S'il vous plaît, Monsieur De Leon.
Bonjour à tous, je suis André Lévesque, chancelier de l'Ordre de Saint-Jean au Canada, et je vous apporte des salutations d'Ottawa. Joyeux mois de la francophonie. Le mois de mars est le mois de la francophonie, consacré à la célébration annuelle de la langue française dans le monde. En tant qu'organisme bilingue, l'Ambulance Saint-Jean est fière de participer au mois de la francophonie. Nous offrons des cours de secourisme en français partout au Canada, notamment en Ontario, au Québec et au Nouveau-Brunswick. L'Ordre de Saint-Jean est également un lien historique très ancien avec la France et le Canada, comme vous l'apprenez. Et avec les Jeux d'été de Paris 2024 qui auront lieu l'année prochaine, certains de nos membres pourraient envisager de s'inscrire comme bénévoles pour les Jeux olympiques et paralympiques, car c'est une merveilleuse expérience internationale. Je suis très heureux d'apprendre que M. Nicolas Baudouin, le consul général de France à Vancouver, est ici avec des membres de l'Ambulance Saint-Jean de la Colombie-Britannique et du Yukon et de tout le Canada. Et je lui souhaite chaleureusement la bienvenue, ainsi qu'à vous, car nous avons hâte, tous hâte, d'entendre sa présentation instructive ce soir.
Très bien. I would like to invite Cadet to welcome Consul General Baudouin on behalf of our Burnaby Division.
Counselor General. Bonjour, je m'appelle Fiona et je représente la division 389C ce soir. Je suis avec Saint-Jean depuis 2 ans et j'ai beaucoup appris. Je me suis liée d'amitié avec de nombreux membres et j'aime être ici. Je vous souhaite la bienvenue au nom de tous nos cadets et nous sommes tous très heureux de vous avoir avec nous. Lors de nos soirées d'entraînement normal, les 30 premières minutes sont consacrées à la pratique de la marche. Dans la seconde moitié, nous nous divisons en groupes et apprenons le premier secours. Nous apprenons à traiter les plaies, à effectuer la RCR et bien plus encore. Nous faisons de nombreux scénarios pratiques pour améliorer nos compétences. Merci beaucoup d'être là et j'espère que vous apprécierez votre soirée.
We're very honored to have Consul General Baudouin here for his presentation this evening. Consul General, over to you.
Thank you, Richard, and good evening to everyone. It's really a great pleasure for me to be here tonight, and I would like to thank again Richard for thinking about me to say a few words and share a few facts and figures about the French language as we're entering the months of francophonie. Et bravo à Mademoiselle Tan pour cette excellente présentation en français. C'est remarquable et bravo pour les efforts que vous faites. Donc, merci à chacun et à chacune d'avoir aussi dit un petit mot en français. Ça fait plaisir et au chancelier l'évêque aussi pour ces gentils mots d'introduction et ce petit salut avec the French flag. So thank you very much for him, to him for that. Maybe I'll just start off and maybe just explain why also Richard thought about me for tonight's event. There are 2 reasons why it's not only an honor but also interesting for me to be here tonight. The first one is to share a bit about the connection between France and the Order of St. John, les ambulances de Saint-Jean. And the second one, as some of you have already mentioned, is the role that France and Canada play in the Francophone movement. I'll start with the connection between France and St. John. As you know, the Order of St. John has a historical connection with the Knights Hospitaliers, les Chevaliers Hospitaliers, who went to Jerusalem and Palestine during the Crusades in the years 1100, so already a while back. These knights, as you probably recall, built hospitals and treated the wounded pilgrims who were on their journey to the Holy Lands. And as a matter of fact, it was a French knight named Raymond Dupuis who served as the order first Grand Master from 1125 to 1158. And he helped develop the Knights Hospitaliers into a strong military force and divided the membership of the order into different orders, the clerical, the military, serving brothers. And it led to the establishment of the first significant hospitalier infirmary near the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, l'église du Saint-Sépulcre à Jérusalem. So many Frenchmen would follow in his footsteps to join and served in the order. After the Crusades, the order footprint moved its headquarters to Malta in 1530, where it stayed until it was expelled by Napoleon in 1788. So another connection with France, although a bit of an unfortunate one. But it should be noted that at that time, the Grand Master of the order and the rules of the order prohibited fighting against fellow Christians. So that led to a negotiation with Napoleon, which led to the order moving to Britain in the early 1830s. As Chancellor Lévesque reminded, and Richard too, another strong connection of the order to France is directly related to the New France, La Nouvelle France, which was established in the late 16th, early 17th century, and more specifically to Samuel de Champlain, who founded Quebec City, the city of Quebec. And for instance, the Knight of Malta held high position in New France, including the governor of La Nouvelle France from 1636 to 1648. And it would be another more or less 250 years before the order was permanently established in Canada. And so that's the reason why the first branch, Canadian branch of St. John Ambulance to teach first aid courses was established in Quebec City in the late 19th century. If I turn now to the second reason why I'm here tonight with you is that we are celebrating Francophonie this month and the French language, which we have in common with Canada. Let me start by sharing a few facts and elements about the importance of Francophonie for Canada and France. A few figures about Francophonie in Canada. You know that roughly 11 million Canadians speak French across the country, which is about a third of the total population. What is interesting, at least also for me, coming from France, is that immersion programs are getting more and more attention, attraction, more and more students. And I checked the last figures, and it seems that over the last 5 years, it has increased by 20%. So that's also a sign of dynamism and of the appetite of Canadians to learn French, which I think is very positive. And it goes without saying that in a country which, of course, recognizes officially 2 languages, it is important to learn French. If you want to join the federal government, pursue a career in Canadian diplomacy, for instance, for the younger members of St. John Ambulance here attending the event tonight, it's worth remembering. And also to know that the French language is also the official language of 32 countries. So that's roughly altogether, not only those 32 countries that I mentioned, but also the wider Francophone speakers, French-speaking speakers. That's in total 320 million people. So 320 million people living on all continents that are speaking and using French. The majority of them living in Africa, but also in the Caribbean. As you probably know, as you're all following news, I guess, Haiti in the Caribbean, which has also very close connection to Canada, is a French-speaking country. And I'll go back to this topic later on. But you also have French-speaking countries in the Pacific, in Asia. For instance, a country like Vietnam or Cambodia have fairly significant French-speaking minorities or communities. And of course, in the Middle East, Morocco, in Algeria, Lebanon. So today, if you put that together, an interesting figure as well is the number of students or people learning French, which is about 50 million across the world. And that number is probably going to grow because the countries where you have a lot of French speakers are also countries which are experiencing very rapid demographic growth, mostly in Africa. So interesting also to have that in mind when you're thinking about the French language and its prospects for the future. So I guess for me, I think the important word for us tonight is community, because the Francophonie is a community of countries and people to which Canada and France belong. And as you probably know, Canada plays a very important role in the Francophone movement. This community is nurtured and developed through the help of an international organization, which is called l'Organisation Internationale de la Francophonie, and also a few media outlets. I will briefly talk about it later. So for instance, Canada and France are founding members of this international organization, which was established in 1970, so already a while ago. And at that beginning, it was made of 30 countries, roughly. The headquarters of this organization is in Paris. And it has different objectives that I would like to share with you, which are also very similar to Canadian foreign policy goals. First one is promotion of French language, and more widely of cultural and language diversity. I think that's something very important also for Canada. For the Francophone movement, every language and culture matter, because it is also a reflection of the diversity of our world. We may use a few languages for communication, French, English, Chinese, Arabic, but we also need to fight against uniformity. So that's why it's important to learn different languages. For instance, myself, I learned English, although I sound very, very French when I speak in English. But I also learned Chinese, for instance, when I was in university, which also allowed me to join French Foreign Service. Another sign of the importance of Francophonie for Canada is that, for instance, the organization was led by a Canadian for quite some time. You may know her. Her name is Michaëlle Jean. She was originally from Haiti, the country I mentioned earlier. And Canada is funding that organization also quite substantially. And talking or going back to the situation of Haiti, it's important to know that your country, Canada, and France are cooperating and trying to help improve the current situation in Haiti, which you know is a bit unstable with a lot of security problem. And Canada is providing some support to this country because of the strong connection between within the Francophone movement. Also, I think for you, and more specifically for your younger members, I think there are opportunities for you to make a contribution in Francophone or French-speaking countries. After you graduate, for instance, you can gain international experience by working for NGOs or international organizations for the benefit of the people of those countries in fields like health, engineering. You know, for instance, that a lot of those countries, for instance, in Africa, have important natural resources like forests, critical mineral, mining. So that also are possible connection with Canada. And my last point is to mention that also Francophonie is about media. There are a number of media outlets that are using French. For instance, France 24, which is a bit like the BBC or CNN, in which broadcasts programs in French, but also in English, Arabic, or Spanish. There is also a radio, which is called Radio France Internationale, which broadcasts in many countries. And the last and probably the most important one between France and Canada is TV5 Monde, which is a proper company with investment from France and Canada, which broadcast programs in French, with subtitles worldwide, with an estimated 60 million watchers audience weekly. So that's quite substantial. And it has launched an online platform named TV5 Monde Plus in 2020, which was partly funded by Canada, which you can access on Apple or Android devices. And it gives you access to a lot of content in French, which you can use for recreation, to learn, or also to have a different perspective on what's happening in the world. So to conclude, I think learning French is a smart choice. I wouldn't say otherwise, of course, because I think it allows you to access a different culture, connect with other people, also access work opportunities, promote values that Canada and France share and care about: freedom, democracy, peaceful resolution of conflicts, human rights, international cooperation for sustainable development. So these are all, I think, values that we have in common, and that the Francophone movement is also an advocate for at the international level. So that's the element that I wanted to share with you, and maybe to just echo briefly what Richard and Chancelier Lévesque mentioned. Paris will host the Olympics in 2024, so that's going to be a major event. And I think, as it was mentioned, all volunteers are more than welcome to join and take part to this event and provide the great support that as a first responder, trained responder, you can provide. So that's what I wanted to share, and I thank you again for your attention and allowing me to reach out to you. And I would like again to congratulate you on the great work that all volunteers are doing in BC. Thanks a lot, and I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Merci, Councillor General. That was a very informative presentation for us. I'm the Divisional Training Officer of the Cadet Division 39th, Garfield Huang. Nice to meeting you. Yes, since you are ready, our cadet have some questions for you. And I like our Sergeant Zhao. Go first, please.
Hi. My question is like, what is it like being involved in like international affairs? Like, how did you get your interest in it?
Thank you for your question. I think it started when I was about, I don't know how old you are, but I was in high school, so you probably are about that time in your life. And I was living in the suburb east of Paris, in an area where there was a lot of children from and refugees of Southeast Asia. And so I got a fairly early exposure to that sort of background, the fact that we don't have the same opportunities, or some of us have to go through many challenges to achieve what they want to do. And so I think that's also where I started to develop an interest in international affairs, trying to be involved in this field. So to be able to make a contribution, learn foreign languages. That's when I started to learn Chinese. And that's how it started. So then I followed that feeling and went to university and studied political science and international relations. And that's how I sort of build up my my expertise and later joined the foreign affairs.
Right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Next, we'll have Squad Leader Zhang.
Hi. So, my question for you is, what differs your job as the Consul General in Vancouver compared to someone who works in the embassy in Ottawa?
Thank you for your question. I think I mean, you know, there's only one embassy in a given country. So, for instance, which is usually in the capital city. So there's only one entity, the embassy, which deals with the government-to-government relations. In particular, in Canada, with the federal government. And we, in the consulate, we have 5 across Canada, 1 in Moncton, in the Maritime provinces, 2 in Quebec for historical reasons, 1 in Quebec City and 1 in Montreal, 1 in Toronto, and 1 in Vancouver. So the difference is that we have more connection with the local government, the local communities, the local businesses, and the main difference is that we have this consular services mandate, which means that we provide services to our nationals residing in the jurisdiction. So in total, for the jurisdictions, the jurisdiction of the consulate, which goes from BC all the way to Saskatchewan, Yukon, and Northern Territories, we have about 11,500 French registered. So the main difference would be this part of the mandate, that is to provide reliable services to our nationals, which the embassy doesn't do.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Next we have Corporal Yu.
Hello. Thank you for that wonderful speech. My question for you is, why did you choose to become a consulate general rather than something else, like as a diplomat?
Good question as well. You know, when you're entering the diplomatic service, it's like most of the job. You start at an entry level, so you have usually a desk officer job. You're in charge of a country or several countries, or an issue, a specific topic, like, I don't know, climate change or arms control. And then you move up in your career, you go to different postings, you gain experience, and then you can start to apply for management position, which was the case for me. So after 2 tours in Asia, in Taiwan and in Cambodia, I went back to HQ. I gained extra experience, learn more, get more expertise or exposure to management, how you run a small team, manage a budget as well. And then I applied for a job which I thought would be suitable for me, both in terms of the previous experience I had, namely mostly in Asia, and goes without saying that it's something of I guess, of an asset for me and for France to be able to connect more with the different Asian communities in Vancouver, and also in terms of career move. For me, it was the right time to become a consul general. Then I had to go through an interview process, and fortunately I was selected. So that's how I became and applied for that position that I'm really fortunate to have today.
Thank you for that answer.
Thank you, sir. Next we have Squad Leader Chan.
Hello, thank you for the presentation. My question for you is, what is the most rewarding moment for you being a diplomat?
Tough question, very good one, but tough question. I think it is when you see the outcome of your actions. That's something that I guess is also very important for all of you, because you're really engaged and committed to make a difference on the ground through your volunteering work. And I really commend you for that. And I think it's the same for us, for me personally, but also for the team in the consulate, which I know a bit more today in my current position. But for instance, when I started in the ministry, I started in a department which is dealing with humanitarian assistance, crisis management, which has become, unfortunately, a big part of all foreign diplomacies. And so for me at that time, being able to assess the needs of population which have suffered from an earthquake, for instance, and be able to send out relief materials and supplies, teams as well, I think was really rewarding. So that's something which is very important for, I think, for everyone in the ministry, because sometimes you have you're in positions which are really core diplomatic work, analysis, negotiation, sitting in rooms and negotiating with other people. But when you're able to make a difference, either through what I just described, or here in the consulate, when, for instance, last year we organized the elections for a presidential election and allowed our nationals to be able to take part to very important democratic polls. I think that's very rewarding. So concrete actions is very important.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Squad Leader Ma.
Good evening, sir. My question is, if I travel to France, would I be able to communicate fluently with the local people in English?
Yes. You will be able to communicate in English, although it might be a more pleasant experience for you, and a more rewarding one to be able to say a few words in French with your interlocutors, as depending on the place that you are planning to travel to, the level of English in a small town, for instance, will be much less than in Paris or big cities. So I think it's definitely possible, and there's been a lot of improvement over the years in France in terms of connections and the ability to also follow higher education degrees in English. You have a lot of universities that offer master's degrees, which are taught mostly in English. But I think also to make the experience more relevant and rewarding again for you, it's also nice to be able to interact with people in French.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Sergeant Yip.
Good evening, sir. So my question for you is, do you have any advice for those who are interested in pursuing a career in international relations or diplomacy, or just interested in working in a field that promotes cross-cultural understanding?
Thank you for this question too. I think, I mean, you're already answering partly that question, the fact that you're taking the time to attend an event like this one, listening to me. I hope I'm sharing with you some interesting pieces of information. But I think it's what you have to do. Be open-minded. Continue to nurture the interest you have in what's happening in the world. Stay connected to the events happening worldwide, and having this interest in making a difference in your community with your people. I think these are very strong drivers for you to serve your country, because that's what you are in a way already doing, and this is what people involved in either in the federal government in Canada or in the civil service in France are all passionate about.
Thank you for your answer.
Thank you very much. Mr. Consul General, as our tradition, we always leave the most challenging question at the end. And I'd just like to know, are you ready for that?
Yes, yes, go ahead, shoot.
Okay, thank you. Now I have our junior member, Junior Liang, have that question for you.
Yes.
Hi, quel est votre saveur de crème glacée préférée?
Quel est mon... Sorry, I did not get it entirely. Can you say in again? Sorry, because je comprends le début, mais je n'arrive pas à savoir ce qu'il faut que sur quoi je dois vous répondre. Quel est mon... You can say it in English if you want, and I'll answer in French.
It's what type of ice cream flavor do you prefer?
Qu'est-ce que je préfère comme glace? C'est une bonne question. Je pense que ça serait quand même la glace au chocolat. The chocolate ice cream, I think, would be my favorite. What about you?
Everything. Like, I really love it.
Thank you, sir. It's very nice. I can see the last question is the most challenging one for you. Thank you. We sincerely appreciate that you're answering all the questions posed by our NCOs and members. Do you have any closing remark today?
No, again, I think I'm really happy to have been able to connect with all of you, for you to take the time to listen to me. I think, yeah, thanks again to all your members, and to David and Richard, especially for their constant support and engagement with us. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, sir. And for all that you do in maintaining and building our further between Canada and France. Thank you. Mr. Liu, over to you.
Merci, Ms. Huang. That was a very good Q&A session by our NCOs, and especially the ice cream question. Indeed, it was très difficile, but a good one, I believe. And we all know now you have enjoyed chocolat. I personally learned a lot, especially the historical connection with France, starting over 900 years ago, during the emergence of the Order of St. John, and the importance of Canada's bilingualism. I may have to join Team Canada for Paris 2024. I just want to say a side note here as well. Sorry, I just noticed as Colonel Rohani has joined us as well. Colonel Rohani, sir, it's good to see you. I'm glad that you can make it.
I've been here for a while. I listened to everything, and I was hoping the Consul General would say French vanilla, but he chose chocolate.
He made a good choice.
That's a good one. Very good. Bravo, Farid. Très bon choix.
Oh, that's a wonderful way to close out here. I would like to now invite Provincial Commissioner Valentine to make the closing remarks. Commissioner Valentine, sir.
Thank you, Richard. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Consul General. It's so good to see you again. And I enjoyed our meeting this summer, and I look forward to seeing you again. I'd like to thank all the cadets for being here again. It's so great to see all these young folks. And Squadron Leader Ma, I can tell you I've been to France on at least 8 or 9 occasions now. And my French is rather limited. I spent 6 years taking Latin in high school. And I can talk to the Dead Sea Scrolls and I can talk to the Catholic bishops, but I can't talk very good to anybody else. But I found that the people of France were more than willing to meet you halfway. If you made the effort to try and communicate with them in their language, they went outside all bounds to make sure that that you were looked after. And that's been my experience, no matter what part of France I visited. So I would suggest that if you're interested in becoming volunteers for the games in France, I would start getting my ducks in a row now and volunteering. Burnaby, you're leading the pack again with the speaker series, and it's I can't tell you how pleased and impressed I've been with your division since I became the commissioner. I'd also like to let you know there's a few things going on in Vancouver. In June, we'll have the Lord Prior visiting from Australia on his way to the investiture and priory meetings in Ottawa. And we hope to have a couple of events where you may get a chance to actually meet him for the Burwell Award. So that's what I'm working on at the moment. And also to let you know that my tenure as commissioner is coming up. My 2-year appointment has stretched into 6, and the board for St. John Ambulance BC in the Yukon is currently searching for a replacement for me, which would take place in June, I hope. I am also really excited to let you know that we are continuing our humanitarian workforce program with St. John Ambulance. The federal government has decided to fund it for another 3 years. So opportunities for training and getting up to speed in the event of a natural or a man-made disaster anywhere in Canada is in the future for those of you that are aging out of cadets and ready to move into the adult divisions. So again, there's lots of things on the horizon for you. I understand there's some changes, and I haven't seen a nod from Raymond yet, so I won't make that announcement until it's appropriate. But thank you again, Monsieur Consul General, for your kind words and a very enlightening history lesson for those of us here in Canada. And I wish you all a good night, and say again to you, one St. John.